Good evening, Paul. It's been a while since I've seen you. I'm sorry that we haven't had the chance to hook up in the past couple of months, but I saw it go. Things happen. We have to respond, and there was a personal issue that I had that I needed to take care of, and I couldn't come online because it would have been a disaster. Really.
I understand, Leo, as they say, life happens,
Mhm.
and I understand the circumstances, and I'm pleased to see that you are dealing with it. I know
Yes,
that it's not finished, and it's a process. And I
exactly.
think, re-engaging with the things that you do is part of the therapy and the healing process.
Absolutely. I- I'm
Trust
a,
me.
I'm appreciating those comments because it really continuing to do the things that I do has really helped me a lot in kind of transitioning my feelings and transitioning my whole being with this thing. It's really hard for me, but so
Yes.
anyway, so we haven't been on, and we had started a great conversation on topics of crime and on education, and so I want us to continue along those same lines. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leo Gilling, and with me this evening, as usual, Dr. Paul Ivey, and we have this really nice conversation. No upbeat, over the top type of thing, just hitting the issues as we go along, and I've found it quite interesting and educative for me to sit with Paul and chat. Paul, tell me what's been going on with you.
I have continued my day job, eh? And
You better.
in the university space, as just indicating to our viewers here that I work at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Uh, uh, but my views here do not reflect my employment and my employers. My views here are couched from the standpoint of being a Jamaican citizen who has an interest in national affairs. And so I have continued to look at the happenings in the national space. I see the political temperature is rising. And what, the JLP had its conference a week ago, the PNP having had its own in October.
Yes.
And with the local government elections due in February 2024, as a citizen, I'm beginning to continue my keen observation of the happenings in the national space, as well as the things that have been happening before in terms of still, we have had a recent state of emergency called in parts of the West, in Clarendon and St. Catherine and so forth. This crime monster continues unabated. I've listened to utterances from the Chief Justice in terms of whether these minimum mandatory sentences are going to have the desired effect that the lawmakers think and the policymakers and so forth. So I've continued. I'm also in the process of writing several other books. And what I've begun to do now, in addition to the earlier books on Jamaica, Paradise, and Paradox, which I have 3 volumes of, which have been published, as you know, Leo, I'm looking now at portraits. So the books that I have in preparation are a portrait of the Jamaican education system. I'm taking a look at that. I have a portrait of the justice system that I'm writing. And I have a portrait of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Yes. And
good luck.
Right.
You probably look at that from a public sphere rather than a factual, but hey, you're gonna have to go deep for that one, boy.
Yes, I'm looking, you're in the criminology sphere in terms of your graduate studies and so on. So these are the things that are occupying my mind, be outside of my workspace, day job. I still continue as a public affairs watcher, observer, and commentator on these various areas of life in Jamaica.
Well, I'm glad you use the term commentator. Because I want to pick your brain a little bit because you mentioned something about Judge Sykes, and I made a little comment today on Facebook announcing that he disagrees pretty much with the bills in Parliament that are for more stringent sentencing, whether it's mandatory minimum sentencing or they're increasing the sentencing for example, murder from 25 years to 50 years, 100 years, whatever it is. And so, tell me what do you think about that? Have you done any reading on that? Any research on that?
I have listened to the Chief Justice keenly. And the thing about the Chief Justice is this: he is a very deliberate person in his words. Yes, he chooses his words carefully and he analyzes a situation before he comments. And he normally gives a dissection of the issues and the reasons why he has come to a particular position that he's articulating in a public space. And it's not like he is willy-nilly criticizing or disagreeing with the political directorate, the lawmakers. But as the judiciary being one of the branches of government, he is expressing his independent view as to what he thinks the efficacy of these minimum mandatory sentences are. And what I've found interesting about what he has said is that it is not a question of whether you are having an effect on the conviction rates. He's pointing out that
which is the most important thing.
Yes, so the conviction rates are not there. And so when you increase a sentence to 50 years or 500 years, but you are not catching and convicting the perpetrators of violence, then you're not going to make an effect on the crime situation overall.
Well, let me tell you, sorry. So let me tell you what the punishments, the harsher punishments that they've announced, the government has announced in the past 2 years.
Yes.
The first one, in the past 2 years, they've announced harsher punishments for people who shelter criminals.
Yes.
Second one, to increase the time for murderers. For persons who harm children.
Yes.
I want to increase that. For white collar crimes, I wonder if that includes like corruption.
Embezzlement and
there might be small money, monkey money, man. All right. For lawbreakers, for owners of dogs.
Oh yes.
Cyber security crimes, and for bomb hooks. And one was just released a couple of days ago. I didn't make a note of it. But those are
for children. Children who are convicted of murder.
That is it. Thank you so much for that one. Because I didn't write it down, right?
Yes.
So they want a child to be tried for as an adult. And they want a harsher punishment for it. So
30 years, I think.
So here are the things that's what happens when you put on harsher punishments. One, the biggest one is you're tying up prison space that we don't have. Right? You're tying up prison space that we don't have. You are not increasing the conviction rate because you have not yet addressed things like securing crime scene, doing proper crime investigations, and so forth and so on.
Getting the forensic certificates on time.
Absolutely. In a timely manner. You know, all of these things, bringing a good, solid case to the prosecution for them. How many times have we gone, we listened to the judge scold the prosecution for not having any evidence? You don't go to court without evidence. You don't go, I mean, if you don't have evidence, drop the case before you go to court because you're wasting the court's time, right?
Yes.
So those are things that they need to address, and that's not go. It doesn't seem like that is going to happen. People who don't understand the implications of these harsh measures are asking for these, and they're tying up the parliament. They're tying up everybody's time than to go and make laws and rules and evaluate policies that will effect change in the criminal justice system. That's what they need to do.
There's also the unintended consequences that have come to light already when they increased the minimum sentence for gun possession, illegal firearm possession. What they have found out is that persons are no longer willing or inclined to enter guilty pleas.
Right.
They are taking their chances with a jury or going through a trial because they're saying that, look, if I'm going to face 15 or 20 years in prison, I'm going to take my chances versus pleading guilty.
Absolutely.
And so that's another unintended consequence of these minimum mandatory sentences that are there. Yeah. Because I think a principle in the justice system is this, which the judges have argued for, is that each case has to be decided on its own set of facts.
Yes, that's typical.
So the judiciary needs to have that discretion to make a determination of the facts of a case, the circumstances, and to arrive at a fair sentence.
Yep.
Match the circumstances.
Yes. Yes. It's unfortunate that we have people who are not academics in the laws of criminal justice and criminology, and they are the ones who are coming up with these things without even doing any research. Somebody got mugged last week, and or a couple of days ago, and they come up with a law to extend I mean, you can't just do that.
It's an emotional response.
Absolutely.
And then on the other hand, there isn't any rehabilitation in the prisons. In fact, one incarcerated former entertainer has been writing to the policymakers. I think it's
I saw that. Ninja Man, yes.
Pointing out the need for rehabilitation so that when somebody comes back to society, they are changed. And that's tremendously lacking as part of the whole criminal justice system that we have in Jamaica.
It is a fact that education and training, especially vocational education and training, is the key to rehabilitate those people and reduce the recidivism rate. And nobody's taking advantage of that. They only see the penalty. These are people. And sometimes people go to prison and they were the ones who did the crime. There was a case recently where, which case was it? Where the person was on site, but they didn't do anything, and they got more time in prison than the person who actually did the crime. And so we need to think a little bit more about when we see things happen, and don't jump, just don't jump just because of a political ploy, just because you think you're gonna get some measure of political gratification out of it by saying it. And I think that's what's going on.
Yes, another thing that's driving this, is part of this punish the dirty criminals them.
Yeah.
The dirty criminal them, lock them up and throw away the key.
Yes.
You know, rather than taking a more intellectual approach, a more research-based approach to these things, a more scholarly approach to this thing, we tend to devalue scholarship in this country, you know. We tend to devalue scholarship, and then when it suits us, we say, well, what are the universities doing? What are the universities doing, and so on? There is no lack of scholarship as it relates to the crime issue in Jamaica, you know. Professor Anthony Harriot, Professor Bernard Edley, and other criminologists have done significant scholarly work in this area.
That being used.
Is that the policymakers are not using it.
They're not looking at it.
In front of me, Professor Harriot's edited book, Understanding Crime in Jamaica, New Challenges for Public Policy. It has in it 10 chapters, 10 chapters by different contributors on the different aspects and dimensions of the crime issue.
Give me some ideas of the topics of these chapters, please.
Well, let's start with Professor Harriot himself as the editor. The Jamaican crime problem, new developments and new challenges for public policy. Chapter 2, Obika Gray, badness, honor. That's how we venerate and celebrate badmanism.
Celebrate the badmanism, yes, yes.
But listen to this one. The historical roots of violence in Jamaica. The Earn Report of 1949.
Before you go,
Amanda Sives.
But before you go to that one, I just go back to that one a little bit. I want to hold the thought on how we celebrate criminals who later become good citizens. Good citizens.
Oh, yes.
All right. So you can go to number 3 again, please. Just read
there's
it
that dimension, and there's the other dimension of how we have our murals.
Yes.
Different communities that celebrate the bad man them who have met their demise, and so on and so forth. So the Hearn Report of 1949, delving into the historical roots of violence in Jamaica.
I'd love to read that one, because
here's this one.
Yes.
Chapter 4 by Mark Figueroa and Amanda Sives again. Garrison Politics and Criminality in Jamaica. Does the 1997 election represents a turning point? But what is coming out from this particular chapter is that we're seeing where garrison politics and criminality are bedfellows.
Actually, is that still a major factor in our existence today?
There's a different variant of it.
Okay.
Just like the virus, the virus, the variant. Yes. So it has evolved, and we're seeing a different variant of it. We don't no longer have the situation where politicians are going into communities and handing out guns and handing out guns. We don't see it that way. But it has taken on a different form. It has taken on different forms.
Okay, go ahead.
The impact of crime on tourism arrivals. And so it delves into the tourism.
Don't go any further. Don't go any further. There was a
Gallup poll.
A Gallup poll.
Yes.
We talk about that as it comes. Right. Go ahead.
We'd say that the tourists are find Jamaica to be safe.
Well, they didn't put that in the newspaper. They said Jamaica is the safest place.
Jamaicans think Jamaica is safe. Yes. And then Professor Don Robotham, Crime and the Public Policy in Jamaica. So you know, then I think it was a 2009 Grace Kennedy lecture. It was by Professor Anthony Harriot again on the issue of crime. We have had the Carr report on political tribalism.
Yes.
We have had the Wolf report. There is no shortage, and we have had commissions of inquiry into various things and so forth. There's no shortage of information or studies on the crime situation in Jamaica. What is lacking is a systematic approach to law enforcement. I heard a broadcaster this morning saying on radio that she went to Negril recently, and she rides a motorbike herself. She drives a motorbike. She says that you must say drive my motorbike.
True.
So she drives a motorbike. So she is interested in that area, in that activity. So she said she was going to Negril recently, and she started to count the number of motorcyclists that did not have helmets on. And she said she stopped at 45 in her count. And of the 45, only 5 had on helmets. Now, the question is this: where you have an environment where laws that are on the books are so flagrantly violated, and we have a police force that has a department called PSTEB, Public Safety and Transport and Enforcement Branch. Well, Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, PSTEB. And if you can see any little guy riding up and down without helmets all over the place with a motorbike making loud noises and all of that type of thing, in such an environment, I've covered this already with you, Leo, where I've said that if the environment is such that lawlessness seems to pervade the environment, you are not going to be able to if you can't deal with the little things, how are you going to deal with the big things? There's a psychological dimension to law enforcement, and we are missing that part of that picture.
I don't even think our police officers
If
understand
I think I can get away with a little thing,
I'm gonna do
I will contemplate getting away with a big thing if the circumstances are such give me to contemplate a bigger crime if I can get away with a small.
I don't think that our police officers understand that. I don't think that they're trained to understand that. I think that policing is a basic has a basic format that is used to train our new police officers. By the time they get onto the streets, they're doing the same thing as the previous police, the active police officers, which is actually nothing.
Exactly. And consider this. I've always thought about it. There are 17 or 18 police divisions across Jamaica. And I don't see any single one that stands out to say that it is effectively policing that particular division.
Well, not really.
Incident recently where they were trying to restrain that young schoolboy, and the policeman was on him and trying to restrain him, alleged that there has also been pepper sprayed and so forth. Why am I raising this? A senior policeman was standing
right there, absolutely,
and watching all of that happening and saying nothing or intervened. And
there are two sides to that, though.
That is part of the problem we have in Jamaica in terms of the leadership.
There are two parts to that, though, because when I looked at that video, you can raise your camera, right? Raise your camera a little bit. But when I look at that video, there is something about the mentality of the kid, the child who's 11 years old.
Yes.
That depicted someone who's already willing to break the law, even just by his thinking. Because when I look at how he responded to the police officer, and based on my knowledge prior to the video being captured, he was kicking and thumping the police officer. And I'm saying to myself, where in most countries do you see a child who's willing to fight a police officer? I don't care what he thinks that he's going to take care of his father. And he can't take care of his father. The point is, you must have some respect for the authority. And I have a feeling that the reason why that senior officer was standing there was because he's saying, this little boy is out of order and lack respect. And so I am not saying that the policeman did right. He had no right to pin that boy and even ready to pepper spray him. They have no right to do that. But for the little boy to have that, it tells me that it's not just him alone that's like that. There are a lot of little boys that are willing to do something like that. And that's scary as hell.
Okay, well, that's an interesting point that you have raised there, Leo. But we ask ourselves the question, what is it that is nurturing such a mindset in our youths? Of course, we have grown up and we have heard the police referred to as Babylon.
Yes.
Babylon, and they are to be hated and all of that and so forth. The point is that, you know, the history of the JCF has been such where they are looked on in a particular way, you know, because of how they interface with citizens and so on. But one of the points that has been made by the criminologists is this. A sick society. We have what is essentially a sick society. Here's the point. If we can have a sick society that is producing successive generations of youth who can, with equal delight, slit throats as they can make babies, with equal delight of they slit throats and also the same delight that they use to make babies. If we can have successive generations that are doing that, what it is telling us that we do not have necessarily a law enforcement problem. What we have is a societal problem that needs to be addressed. We need to go into the social realm to find out what is it in the social sphere that is producing an 11-year-old that will attack a policeman.
I disagree with you. Let me tell you why I disagree with you. And that's why we are here, because we thrash these things, right? I disagree because I believe the police does not and has not created a format for deterrence. Because the only reason why people are deterred, it is based on high conviction rate. It's based on the fact that they think that every time that they steal a pen, they're going to go to prison if they steal a pen. And so I don't believe that it's the society. The society, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. But they can be reeled back in with the right plan, with the right execution of plan, with the right persons at the helm who understand the implications of the laws, who's an academic and who can execute properly the laws and with the police and run the police force the way that it's supposed to be. I don't think that we have a police force that's impacting the nation. I think the nation is impacting police force.
Okay. Well, you see, here's the thing. Remember, you know, children live what they learn. And this takes me to the next academic point, in that the crime problem is organic.
Yes, I agree with that.
And by that I mean that being an organic. So Professor Bernard Edley says, rather than stemming from discrete epidemiological forces, our crime problem is interwoven, organically embedded, and bound up within the Jamaican social order.
I agree with that.
If we were to be intellectually honest about it, the true causes of our crime dilemma, we would see them as intrinsic to arrangements having to do with discrimination, exclusion, dispossession, and urban drift, dysfunctional institutions, underdevelopment, partisan political thuggery and warlordism, persistent poverty, and also backwardness.
Okay, I agree. I agree, but I wanted to say this, that it can be reversed with a good police force. It can be reversed as it did in New York. I don't necessarily agree with the policing that was used to reverse it, because it became somewhat a way to take away black people's constitutional rights. But I do believe that's why I say, if we have a person who understands, as the passion and as the academic support behind him or her, to lead a force into changing the way we do policing. Policing is the most important piece of any society. It is the backbone of any society, because there cannot be, and there should not be, there cannot be a stable society without a police force, and mark my word.
Well, it has been said that, if we could rely on the virtues of men, we wouldn't need laws.
Okay, my point.
And moreover, when we look at the organizing of society, I think his name is escaping me now, but he has made the point that the first obligation of government is law and order.
Is law and order. That's the first thing they put into place.
That's why governments are instituted among people, because after we came out of the hunting and gathering stage of human evolution and began to form societies and communities and so forth, it was recognized that human nature was such that they needed to have boundaries.
Absolutely.
And also it is consequences that regulate behavior. So for every society has its mores and its laws and its values. That's the nature of things. And like I said, the 18 police divisions, not one is effectively policed. Not one of them is effectively policed, not from the standpoint of brute force, but simply enforcing the laws that are there. How many people in Jamaica knows, for example, that you should not light a fire after 6 p.m.?
Yeah.
I was saying to somebody the other day that I remember when my father was walking on the street with his machete, he would wrap it. He would wrap it in order to walk on the public street with his machete. Because that was the rule. Those were the regulations. But now you see people with sharp machete, white sharp, walking on the road with it uncovered and all of those kind of things. It is not an absence of law. There is a powerful piece of law that we have in Jamaica, It's dated, but it's still powerful because it have horse and buggy and something in there. But it is the Town and Country Planning Act. That act regulates what happens in communities. And, and so forth. It's not being enforced.
Well, let's go back to your point about the person who said that every society must start with a police. I think that's Robert Peel. I'm not so sure. It might be Robert Peel of England, the one who came up with the first police force. But if it's not him, I do understand, because that's the truth, that any society throughout the world came up. And you made a comment that that people are not capable, in essence, people are not capable of abiding by the law by themselves, or upholding the law by themselves. And even when we have laws in place, for example, corruptive laws, laws of corruption, I mean, laws laws of corruption, laws where people who are corrupt should go to prison, and people are still bending the law to facilitate. So even though the laws are in place, then people are still breaking them. But if you think about before the Enlightenment periods of the 1700s, right?
Yes.
Before that, what used to happen, laws used to be made on the spur of the moment, depending on who is in control at that. Yes. So if you thief $100 and the person who is in front of you and say he's the judge or the police officer, him can determine right there that you're going to stretch your neck until you die, right? Yes. Or about dig out your eye, right? And so it's from there in the 1700s, they call it the Enlightenment period. People start to look into themselves and say, you know what? Maybe we don't need to cut off one another hand and dig out one another eye, as the Bible in the Old Testament suggested. But rather, let's create laws that are going to make people or make the court decide on an equal sentencing for the crime that you commit.
Yes.
Right? And so if we don't have laws, you are going to be decapitated as a black man real quickly if a white man up this up. And that's what happened. And so we need to respect the laws. We need to have someone who can execute it, and so that we can respect it.
Well, certainly. And this was it. Well, I've gotten the name now. It was Thomas Hobbes.
Okay, Hobbes, that is exactly
yes,
right.
Thomas Hobbes, in reference to the social contract.
Yeah,
when he said that, look, if it's without the state intervening, what we would have is a state of human nature where life would be solitary, nasty, brutal, and short.
That's it.
Yes. So the need for law and order. And I recall the Prime Minister, Holness, saying publicly that he had asked the current commissioner, to restore order to Halfway Tree. And that was just a statement, because it wasn't followed up. And as I said before, and I've said in other spaces, that if we do not enforce law and order from Morant Bay to Negril in Jamaica, we are going to see what we are seeing in Negril now, where robbers are just going on a rampage from business places to business places, because it is the environment where a motorcyclist can come out of his yard without a helmet, knowing full well that nobody's going to stop him. Whereas you and I who are driving, the police is likely to stop us if we don't have our seatbelts on, ticket us for driving without our seatbelt while a man rides past him without a helmet. It's a joke.
Oh, I mean, here's critically stupid, right? I hate that, but it's critically stupid. The same incident with the 11-year-old boy.
Yes.
The reason the father got stopped,
yes,
was because he did not have a child's seat in the car. Look at what precipitated subsequent to that.
Yes.
Bringing other police officers who are getting paid billions of dollars or millions of dollars a year to come and to police a little boy who's 11 years old because his father did not put a child's seat in the car. That's what this is all about. And so if we have the time, no, I am not saying that we can't police the minor crimes, but for it to precipitate into other police officers to come to this particular scene of the crime, what the hell is that?
No, but it's how it was being handled. Because as is reported, and I don't have more than what's reported, the little boy's concern was the manhandling of his father. Yeah. Because I will not go down the road to say that we must not police the little things. Even if it's $1 million, the policeman is being paid.
Absolutely.
Because you see, it is the psychology of it, which is going to have that ripple effect. That's going to give you the returns beyond that $1 million salary that you're paying the khaki suit policeman. Yes. It is the psychology of knowing that you are within the fence. You are being fenced in by laws, because societies have to operate on the basis of laws. My thesis here and my summary point on this score: we must enforce the laws pertaining to the little things, or else we are going to get what we have gotten in relation to the big things getting out of hand. That's what we need to do. It is the psychology of policing. Let me talk about the SOEs, the state of emergency.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
What somebody has said is this, that how the state of emergencies are being implemented is just totally waste of time. you put the police and soldiers at a checkpoint, all the criminals are going to do is get on their cell phones and say, them they don't this up. Them don't this up, them there, whatever, and so forth. I think I heard something recently which made the point in terms of the other side of the equation. It was reported that there was a cordon and search that resulted in an AR-15 or some other kind of firearm and ammunition being seized. You hear the thing? Cordon and search, not a checkpoint.
Right. Cordon and search.
If we are going to have a state of emergency in a particular area, my view is this: you have the emergency powers that enables you to lock down a community. All entrances, all exits. Lock it down like a sardine tin under a state of emergency. And go
just make it smaller and smaller and
smaller. House to house, whole cube, toilet,
everything.
Pen, search everything in that area. That's how you use state of emergency, not a checkpoint with people backing up traffic on the road.
Well, my problem is with this use of state of emergency so often, for the wrong reason, right, is that soldier man, they don't have any social skills. They don't have the ability and the learning that policemen should have about public safety and community-oriented policing. They don't have that. So I saw a video last week of a soldier in a SOE take a gun butt and lick out a girl. I mean, she lay down, she got down flat on the ground. I'm sure she's done it yet because it was a powerful lick. You don't put soldiers in a community just because. You put soldiers, SOEs are for, like, you know, big warfare, rioting, and big or storm, hurricane, lick down thing, and you have to cordon off this and thing, and you know, you don't use it.
I can see.
It's just ridiculous.
Yes, I want to be balanced here because I am trying to empathize with the citizens who are being terrorized in communities by the criminal elements. And they are calling for the SOEs. And I'm saying, I can see where you can have a situation where you need to go in with an SOE to take charge of the situation. I can appreciate that. However, you now have to go with the SOE can't be the long-term strategy of the rolling SOEs. And that is why the formula of the clear, hold, and build, which is what the Zozos are.
So that's what I support the Zozos. I support the Zozos all day long.
Clear, hold, and build. But that's not what they're doing. You go in with a state of emergency for 14 days, the situation subsides for a little bit, you come out, it flares up again, you go back in, whatever. Where is the clear, hold, and build strategy so that when you leave a community, it doesn't snap back like an elastic band and goes back to the situation before?
I just don't like the idea of using it for social issues. I mean, crime to me, if it's not something where you see people that come out every minute that shoot cross one another, I don't believe that should be there. I believe that the police should have. Do you want to know something? I believe the police know all of who are shoot guns in the community. I really believe that.
And then that takes me to my next point, which has been out there as well. We hear from time to time that the violence producers, outside of that, but there are 300 violence producers. If you know who the violence producers are, why can't you get the evidence? You know, say me, Paul Ivey, is a violence producer.
Don't say that too loud.
You can use the Interception of Communications Act. Go to a judge, present your case, and get a court order to tap my phone.
Yes.
and find out what I'm doing and so forth. But
Absolutely.
how on earth you're going to have a state of emergency? You scrape up everybody and say, go in that truck, boy, go in that truck, boy. And you keep them there. You don't put the charge on them after they're being held in detention. Then you release them. And the thing keeps repeating itself.
And,
So
and sometimes it's just one or two.
Feudalism.
Sometimes it's just one or two persons in those communities that they call crime. I don't like the term crime producers. The one or two persons are violence producers. Right. I don't like that term, but maybe it's just one or two of those persons who's doing the stuff. And they terrorize the community for those one or two people. And I believe strongly that they do know who those people are, and they should go in and do what you said. Get a court order to monitor their thing.
Get to the violence producers and assemble the evidence. If we note in other jurisdictions, they can have investigations for a year, 2 years, and they are piecing the evidence together and whatever and so forth. You notice when the US came for our strongman, and when they came over there, what did he do? He plead guilty because the case was already tight.
Yeah, that's the US though.
Yes, that's the US. But why can't we emulate those kinds of practices?
That would be mocha. Yes. Right? Okay. But our police officers have more immediate issues that they have to deal with, that they have to pick up somebody and stuff. But they do, I am saying to you, once you decide to pick up somebody, means that you have a certain amount of evidence from a police officer's perspective to bring this person into questioning. And once you create the questioning and the interrogation, and you find enough more evidence from there, then you're supposed to have all kind of circumstantial stuff going around to bring to court. And that's how you create a case. If they're not doing that, then it's a waste of time.
Right. So, for example, in the trial, that long-running trial that I think it was the One Order gang trial, Chief Justice Sykes presided over. There was one particular situation where a man was one of the defendants was being accused of doing a particular murder, and Chief Justice asked the question, "Where is the body? You went on the crime scene, and you don't have one photograph of the murdered man lying on the ground. Nothing of the kind to say, well, then that there's the evidence that supports the fact that murdered this man on this particular day," and so forth. The Chief Justice came in for some criticism, but he had to go with the law. The sloppiness of the investigations. How can we in 2023 can't be doing some effective textbook investigations? Those are the kind of things that we need to have happening. Textbook investigation, put airtight cases together, and bring persons to book. And see, we cannot also discount the corruption as a factor, because it's a question of one phone call and certain things happen. Those type of things.
We're going to call the minutes. We're going to call the minutes stop. We're going to call the MP. And you know what they're doing, right? That's what I go.
One phone call and something will happen. You hear of big cases, a airplane lands at an airstrip or wherever and so forth, and you hear how many pounds of whatever was found. And then
nobody. And then have nobody.
How is that even possible? So we can't rule out the corruption as a factor that is driving the crime,
Well, it is also not just the physical part, but the corruption where people know of their leaders who are actually committing crime, and they must say to themselves, well, if Femi minister or Femi MP are doing it, then what's wrong with me doing it too? Right?
Well, you see, Leo, I don't know if it is the case that any ministers or any MPs are involved in crime. I don't know if that is something that I can
No, I'm just saying, that's just an example. Or it could be any congressman or any senator. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, because it's one of the other things about it, is that I just mentioned corruption. We can't also rule out the economic dimension, Because a lot of what people do to survive in Jamaica, they're skirting the law, if not
Absolutely.
outright breaking the law.
Absolutely.
Just to survive, because of how the communities are configured and what it is that people do because their educational background is poor. So what you have is the hustling. Man will tell you, what do you do? Why like hustling me do, And what does that mean? It
Only
means
for different
a
things.
little thing here, so, or do a little thing there, so, or do a
Yeah.
little thing.
Some
Do a
of it
little thing.
illegal, some of it illegal, some of them look like it legal, but it's not legal.
And so on and so forth. And a
Yes.
lot of that permeates the society. When you hear this euphemism, that a big chunk of the Jamaican economy is informal. Part of it also includes things that are questionable as it relates to the law. So you see, the society is deformed. The society is deformed, and that is why Professor Hedby had made the point about the crime is organic. It is interwoven.
Yes, it is interwoven,
It is
but
in our music.
it's because our law enforcement did not continue the great law enforcement that they started back in the 50s and 60s. It's completely deteriorated to the point where the people are not afraid of them. So they say, okay, I'm not afraid of them, we can't do anything, I mean, I got prison. That's the way it's happened over time. First of all, they devalue the police officers as Babylon from in the 60s and 70s. They devalue it. That's a great way to start. Babylon. And it stayed within a certain sect until it started coming out. Everybody about all police are Babylon now, right? So therefore, if you have Babylon and you are if Babylon is something or somebody that you can trust, if Babylon is somebody that is not supposed to be among our social sector, then who cares about them? And
yes, so but you see, the Babylon concept is part of the historical legacy that the Jamaica Constabulary Force has not divested itself of. Remember, the Constabulary Force was formed in 1865 after the Morant Bay Rebellion.
Right.
And its purpose was to protect the plantocracy from the dangerous Negroes.
Yes.
And so the police saw itself as being part of the citizenry saw the police as part of the oppression. And there's a lot of oppression. Remember all these Rastamen who got their locks cut off. Anytime a Rastaman went to jail and come back in the day, him locks gone.
Yeah, man.
And so on and so forth. So I'm making the point that the Constabulary Force has not divested itself in a great to the extent that it should of the historical baggage that came from the way it was formed and what it was formed to do back in the day. Because there was a time, open eye Jeep boy, and those type of things. The biggest man would be called a boy by a policeman and so on and so forth. So we have that part of it. I'm saying to you that I've seen changes in the police force. Police will now approach you in a more cordial and courteous manner and so on and so forth.
I've seen that too.
And it is not just we make a mistake if we think it is just the JCF that's going to be responsible for the maintenance of law and order in the society. A number of different institutions have to come to play. I ask myself, why is the typical Jamaican so angry? Jamaican so hungry where there's a hot patty rage just below the surface. A hot patty rage just below the surface. What is causing that? What is
but I can remember though, Paul, that when I used to go to Montego Bay and used to go to Kingston, there weren't a lot of stoplights.
Yes.
And people were patiently waiting for that police officer with him white thing, patiently waiting, come, stop, come. I used to see that, and that used to be the most beautiful thing on earth. That used to be sweet. Now I'm seeing police officers standing right there. I want taximan go around and go in and go out and almost lick out a car they're supposed to. I don't know nothing about it.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So there was a time when there was respect and regard for police officers. There was.
But there's an element of self-discipline, you know. There has to be self-discipline as well. And so we have to go into our schools and we have to go into our homes. But before we get to the schools, we have to start at the homes, because we cannot necessarily expect the schools to fix what has gone wrong in the homes. And we can't expect the police force to fix what has gone wrong in the homes. I don't know if we're going to, but you see, the thing about it, you know, we have to eventually come back to government.
Yeah.
Because government has the levers and the tremendous reach to effect changes on a country level scale.
Absolutely. That's why I say it can come back with the right person at the top who understands and can deliver the right plan. Right plan.
I was hoping that if a young prime minister, in the person of Prime Minister Holness, born after independence and all that, he would transform the country, transform it and set it right. Transform it and set it right with everything that had gone awry. I would not be unwilling for the government, for example, to spend some NHT money, because they're taking $11 billion per year out of the NHT. I would not quarrel if the government were to take some of the NHT money and go and clean up all of those inner city communities where people are living in terrible conditions. Sewage on the streets, zinc fence, some houses that should be condemned are being inhabitable, and so on and so forth.
That is like you know, what do you call it again? Utopia. That's like utopia, they call it, right? Utopia. But because crime pays.
$11 billion can go out far away in cleaning up downtown Kingston.
Crime pays. Crime pays, and it puts money into certain people's pockets. I don't know if you know this. The more crime that occur is the more a particular set of people make money. And if those particular set of people are making money, right, then the change is not going to occur. So utopia don't work. Even, you know, they'll take anything else, that $11 billion to put somewhere else that really makes no sense, and then they can brag on it. That's all of this. But trust me, that's not going to work.
I will make myself susceptible to being called naive. I will make myself susceptible to being called naive, because I will not buy into a conspiracy to say that because crime pays, the perpetration of it is a deliberate thing.
I don't know that it's deliberate, but when it pays, it's like having a job or having a business, and money flows in. No matter what you think, money flows into somewhere if there is corruption. When you see people if you are making $200,000 a year and you're making a house for $10 million, there's a problem there, right? and so the problem is that you're bringing in a certain amount of money from a different place than your $200,000, because the $200,000 not gonna fix that. That's why I say
interesting. If you notice what is interesting, just as an observation, that as we are seeing the Integrity Commission beginning to have some bite and beginning to flex its muscles, you notice how it is being attacked.
Big time.
Yes. Now that the commission is starting to have some bite and is starting to flex its muscles, and we're seeing that it has some force behind it. You notice how it has been set up on, like a pack of hyenas getting at the Integrity Commission.
So the one thing I like with the Integrity Commission, it operates like the federal government, because they've been there for 7 years without doing or showing what they're doing. They're gathering all their evidence, they're looking and putting the reports together, and then when they deliver their reports, right, it is sealed. It is airtight.
Yes.
So therefore, people don't like the airtightness of the reports, and that's the problem. So that's what I'm saying. You know, I get the sense that the Integrity Commission is of integrity, and I really like what they're doing.
Yeah, but what is shocking is that a senior legislator said that the Integrity Commission has no integrity.
I know.
That is part of the attack, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm using my words carefully. So
Yeah.
unfortunate. I have made the point, Leo, and this is where I'm saying that, you know, my expectation of a young prime minister getting a mandate and to, you know, in the last conference before the last one here that the JLP had, you know, that Bruce Golding essentially criticized his party and the prime minister.
I didn't hear that. Tell me.
De facto, in effect, it was a criticism because he was saying that the large mandate that they got in 2020 was such that it gave the prime minister the opportunity for legacy defining actions. Legacy defining actions. The prime minister said some time ago that he was no longer interested in political popularity. He was interested in doing what was right for the country.
I remember that.
And this is where I'm going with this point. Erskine Sandiford in Barbados made some unpopular decisions as prime minister in terms of the fiscal arrangement for the country. Tough decisions as it relates to the fiscal situation there. And he lost the election. But these decisions were such that they enabled Barbados' economy to be stable and to prosper, such that their exchange rate is not running all over the place like ours, and so on and so on and so forth. So can't we have, the point is, can we have prime minister or leaders who are looking to the long term, intergenerational benefits, and less to do with the election side?
Okay, can you take that side again where the utopia side?
I'm making myself vulnerable to being charged with naivety.
Yes. You take that. I'm not giving it to you. I'm just saying, right? Elections, and I found that out the hard way. Elections nowadays is not about who can do the work.
Yes.
But it's who can become more popular during the time of election. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're good at something or you can put in great infrastructure and some things to build on. That has nothing to do with that. It
so
has
legacy,
only to...
where's the legacy factor?
Nothing.
Where's the intergenerational benefits that you're going to orchestrate?
Think about it. In the past three years, have you seen any of those implemented?
I would be hard pressed, but I don't think there aren't any.
Okay, that's fine.
Readily comes to mind. Okay, so for example, the compensation review. It is I think it is something that has some long-term benefits that can be derived from it in terms of changing a whole paradigm into a new paradigm.
Maybe they'll come back again next year.
Okay.
Again,
for example, I think the independent central bank, there have also been fiscal rules put in place that will determine how our financials, our public finances are handled and so forth. So let's
go back to the compensation.
Right. No, just to make it
right. Thank you, sir.
It's fair to say there have been nothing.
I didn't say that. No. I'm asking you if there's any. Okay, yeah. I'm asking you if there's any. I'm just saying though, because if you put compensation in there, you're actually saying that it is an intergenerational posture, which means that 10 years down the line it's going to be the same. 20 years down the line is going to be the same. And I'm proposing to you that in the next whomever is in power the next 4 years, they can come up and put in another plan like that.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there'll be.
Tell me about it. Did they put anything to stop it?
no, they will tweak it, but in terms of the framework that is now in place, the broad framework, I don't think it will be able to change. Let me tell you where
Explain
I think
that. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, the framework in terms of there's a different paradigm in terms of how public sector compensation will be done. The whole compensation bands are different, and the whole approach to it, where there are no proliferation of individual allowances anymore. They're all part of your compensation package, to which you will also be pensionable. Because
Okay,
in the past,
are we talking about public sectors, or are we talking about ministers? I mean,
no, public sector.
Oh, public sector. We're on two different.
Well, here's the point. They have now scored an own goal, because after putting in place the compensation review for the public sector, they turned around and gave themselves 300% increase. That does now breed cynicism among the population and created bitterness. So it's like the proverbial cow giving the pail of milk and kicking it over. But the compensation review arrangement was a good thing in terms of changing this whole thing, where you had 100 or more different bargaining units.
So you can't get something. You can't get something. I mean, can't get. I'm gonna get none. You can't get something. I'm gonna get
none. That is the downside of it in terms of the whole approach to doing things. The self-serving approach come in and negate it.
Something that's good.
Something that was positive. And so it goes back. Now, I asked a question recently, let me see how to put it. It is like the political, it's like the same environment in Jamaica that breeds crime, in the sense to say that the environment is conducive to a particular outcome. It is like the politics that we practice. It will defile even the most idealistic person that goes in there to try to do things differently or with a different approach. And where I'm going with this is that I believe that the finance minister coming in as a fresh person, bright person coming into the political space, but look at him on the political platform nowadays. Just a gear out from a political to gain political mileage, which to me is disappointing. So again, the transformation of the country is not going to occur because the leaders are not willing to look at legacy defining intergenerational benefits for the country.
They just want to win. And last point I want to bring up, I think we have to wrap up soon, but we didn't get a chance to talk about something that, in my view, was the worst decision that a government could make, a government in power could make, where, and I don't understand why I didn't see much more hoopla about it. It's still there's none. Where the head of the country and his spouse, who's the second highest ranked person in the country, are leading the country. I don't, maybe to me, if you're in such a high profile position, then you try to resist the opportunity for your spouse to be in similar, because what's going to happen, people will start thinking about, what are you guys talking about in bed? And they're human beings, right? They're human beings. They are not machinery who don't have feelings. So if one person has an issue on the plate and the other person in such a heavy position can do things to prevent or to save the other person, it is going to happen. They're going to save them. Because who is going to let their spouse down? Who is going to say, no, it's okay, take him to prison? Which spouse is going to do that? And so I figured at the point in time when it was recognized that the prime minister's wife was to succeed a person of the speaker, then there should have been a decision from the PM to say, you know what, this shouldn't happen. We should not do this.
I think you should go a little bit further upstream.
Tell me.
I think from the time when she was made deputy speaker, she should not have gone anywhere near the speaker's chair.
I believe that.
So look, there is nothing in the Constitution or any other place that prohibits that from happening. But I think on the face of it, it is something that I think is a mistake.
Big one.
I actually think it is a mistake, and I don't think the persons did in the sense that, they got there by any
devious
nefarious means.
Right, no, they didn't.
They didn't get there by any nefarious means, but I think it is something that should have been avoided.
Absolutely.
Because it is taking on the form of looking like some type of dynasty.
It is.
Like some type of monarchy, dynasty type of thing and so forth. I don't think it's a good look.
It's not a good look.
Personally speaking, and I don't think it has anything to do with the individuals and so on, but it is the optics. The optics and the implications as you have framed it in terms of, okay, you share the same pillar and all of that type of things. And, one wonders, what is the motivation behind the changing of how reports that are coming to the House, what's behind how those reports are being treated and so on and so forth. I think it's something that we should not have had as a country. I would take that view.
That could be a perfect situation where why it should not have happened, and people should step aside from that and move somebody else in office
I think the opposition party heard when they seconded the motion.
They didn't think about it.
But like I said, it was already gone bad further upstream, because from the time he was deputy, because when you're deputy to somebody, it means that if they slip, you're likely to be the one to go in the chair. So she ought not be the deputy at all in the first instance, and so forth. So yes, I am of that view. That I think it's something that it just should not have been.
So like in the United States, the wife of the president does not run for office.
Mm-hmm.
She's first lady, right?
Yes.
The same thing from many other countries. The only other country I saw something like this happen was the Philippines, and I don't remember the Imelda Marcos situation. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember Imelda, but I don't know if she ran. I
don't know if she ran for the position or she took over for her husband. I don't remember exactly what it was. But it didn't look good. It don't look good that both of you are in office, in powerful offices at the same time, and you're sleeping in the same bed. It just don't make any sense to me.
Like I said, it looks like a kind of dynasty,
yes.
A kind of political dynasty, which is embedded in the notion of blood ties, and less to do with ideological commonality of ideology and so on and so forth. It's more to do with blood and inheritance, and so you have a dynasty, and we have another husband and wife team, East, West, Portland, and so forth. And you of course, in the Bushes, you had father and son president and so forth. What we're seeing in Jamaica is almost like it's a political affair where, the offsprings of the politicians are getting in on the act and so on and so forth. So to frame this thing in more prosaic terms, I'm just saying that, I believe that it really, the optics of it and what it lends itself to in terms of speculation that persons can come up with if it were not so, then you wouldn't have the possibilities for the speculations to occur.
I agree. I agree. So, man, it has been a great discussion. We went a lot of different topics this tonight. It was really nice to be bantering with you. I disagree.
Yes, same here. You know, like I said, I have a lot in my mind. I watch the public space. I see what's happening in Jamaica, and so I have views on them
Yeah,
because
man.
I believe that a citizen is supposed to be very much engaged in the affairs of their country.
Absolutely,
Yes.
I agree with that. Want to say good night to everyone. Thank you so much if you're watching. We will be sharing this video around, and so we'll probably split it in 2 or 3 pieces and then share it accordingly. But I thank you so much for watching. Thank you on behalf of my colleague here, Dr. Paul Ivey. It's been such a pleasure to have you this evening, my brother.
Yes, thanks everyone, and have a good evening. Good to see you again, Leo. Take care.